Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam amma ba'd. In the death and the life of Whitney Houston, there's lessons for all of us. As she was from the generation, my generation personally, and not so far from my age, and we see how someone can be at the top of the world, and then their fame, their status, their fortune, and then thereafter their life goes away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran and lets us know that every soul shall taste death. Every soul shall taste death. So what about you and I? She just beat us to the grave. And all the fame and all the fortune that she had by modeling and showing herself, by being beloved to many people because of her voice, because of her looks and her status, all of this went away within a day. And in fact, her life was full of troubles and tribulations, as we're all tested. But how will she meet her Lord? And ask yourself better than a more important question, how will you meet your Lord? Will you meet your Lord on belief, believing in Him and worshiping Him and Him alone? Will you meet your Lord and die in a state of righteousness, or will you die in a state of sin and wickedness? And where will your death take place? None of us knows that. But do we want to be as they described, as now is in the media, that she died in her bathtub with drugs and alcohol? Is this a befitting death for anyone? And first and foremost for the believer, no. Stay away from those things like drugs. Stay away from those things like alcohol. Those things that Allah has prohibited from us in the first place. And Islam protects you. It protects your intellect. It protects your soul. And it protects your body. And it protects your health when you eat halal. You spend from halal. Your earnings are from halal. And everything you do, you try to follow the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ by doing the lawful things. Then you'll have a success, bi'idhnillah. By the grace of Allah, you'll have success in this life as well as the hereafter. Because that's the goal. So those are some of the reflections that I had by reflecting on the tragedy of the death of Whitney Houston. Why is it a tragedy? Because we are fully aware. You can be certain she didn't die as a believer. She didn't die upon worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and following the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No, she didn't die like that. But rather, according to the media reports thus far, she died in her bathtub on drugs and on alcohol. And as we've heard of many entertainers who died in this state, you find them in the bathtub in their own vomit and sometimes in their own blood that they've spilled because of the misery in their life. They tried to drink their problems away. They tried to smoke their problems away. And they shot up to try to rid themselves of their problems. But all they did was rid themselves of this life, or shortened it in accordance with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then now they have to face their Lord in the next life, after having killed themselves and had misery in this life. And then what about the hereafter? Is that how you want to follow? Is that the path that you want? So I ask myself, how will I die? And I ask you to ask and challenge yourself and think. Be a person of reflection. How will you meet your Lord, and in what state? So we ask Allah the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil and protect us from following that which will lead us astray, from secularism, from drugs and alcohol, from just indulging in materialism and those things which will take us away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.